Frank, but let's start with game one. You were down at Rogers Place yesterday for media day, and I was on this morning with Colby Cohn and Johnny Lazarus, Morning Cup of Hockey, and they asked me, they're like, man, how much is revenge fueling the Oilers this year? And I'll be honest, from hearing what I did at media day, I don't think it's revenge that the Oilers are after. I just think they want to prove to everyone that they can get the job done. Like, I don't think there's any sort of like hatred towards the Panthers.
No, I would agree with you, and there's obviously no rivalry or anything like that, and I wouldn't expect a carryover. But what I will say is I think a little bit of what the Oilers are feeling right now, and you could tell, I think you get a good vibe from teams. The Oilers are confident, but I do get the sense that, to your point, they're facing a little bit of pressure. Remember, the Panthers were in this spot last year, got to the Cup final the previous year, lost. Paul Maurice was talking to open Cup final media day. I just want to win one of these things one damn time. And they go and do it, and now they come into this series like, hey, we're the big dogs here. We're the team that won. You know, we're the team that you have to beat. I think the Oilers are feeling a little bit of, hey, we've had some close calls. We've got the very best players in the world. This is our year. This is our time to break through.
Yeah, and again, you're right. I think there is not even weirdly, there's more pressure on the Edmonton Oilers.
For sure.
I think, because if you're Florida and you lose this one, everyone still looks and goes, man, 3 straight runs to the Cup. You eventually ran out of gas. Maybe you lost to Connor McDavid. Sure. If you're the Oilers and you lose in back-to-back Cup finals, all of a sudden now it's the questions of, do they have enough, and all of that. And narratives that I don't think would be necessarily true, but the conversations would be happening is my point. And that would be the noise that follows them for the next 12 months.
Well, look, let's face it. There's still flat earthers out there who think that Connor McDavid is somehow going to sign somewhere else like the Toronto Maple Leafs when his contract's up in a year from now. I mean, some things you can't fix, right? Mm-hmm. And narratives and what happens after the fact, you can't. But for the Oilers, they have the ability to write a new narrative. Yeah. And that part, I think, is incredibly enticing to them.
Yeah, and a lot of the conversation, I think, and it's understandable, and I don't think it's me like being a homer or whatever, a lot of the conversation is focused on the Edmonton Oilers right now, and that leads to people going, whoa, why are we disrespecting the Florida Panthers? But I don't even think that's the case. I think everybody knows the Florida Panthers are a really good team. They're the defending champs. It's their crown. When the Stanley Cup is sitting at center ice tonight before game one, there's a bunch of Florida Panthers names on it from last year. I don't get the sense that there's any disrespect coming to the Florida Panthers. Are you picking up on any of that?
Not at all. I don't mean...
And, like, especially from, like, I mean, the media, the fans, you can say whatever you want about them, but, like...
That's not how the team is looking at it, for
there you
sure.
go. Yeah.
And we kind of had that conversation yesterday, both at media day and then behind the scenes after the fact. There is a ton of respect for the Panthers. I think everyone universally thinks that this is a really good team, that this is going to be a heavyweight bout. This is a titanic matchup. This is an NBA Finals. Like, hey, we've got the two best teams in the world colliding that everyone agrees are the two best teams, by the way. And we don't normally get matchups like this. Yeah. We usually get like, hey, one team went on an incredibly hot run, or this team was the upset special Cinderella. It's never really like these two Titans get to the finish line. They never normally make it here, and that part, I think, makes this a really juicy series.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of funny the way leagues go in different cycles, but like, remember during the LeBron Curry years, that's when the NHL felt like it had a whole bunch of different teams going to the finals, and you're right, there were 8
like
seeds.
Nashville, San Jose,
the Blues.
Yeah, right.
And now it's the reverse, where, yeah, in the NHL, it's 3 straight Eastern Conference championships for the Panthers, back-to-back for the Oilers. And you look in the NBA, it's like 2 mid-market, middle of the United States teams here who just happen to stumble their way to the end.
But that's a jumping off point in my view for the NHL. Like, everyone, look, if you're watching our show, we don't need to preach to the converted, but if you're out there and you're a casual hockey fan who lives in not one of these markets, like, this should be appointment viewing because of the star power, because of the quality of these teams, because of the physicality. And I actually really have enjoyed the arc of this year's Stanley Cup playoffs.
Absolutely.
The first round was electric. And then the second round, I was like, And the third round was brutal.
Awful.
But that's the NBA. It's like this. It's like a slow burn. And then you get to the final, and it's usually awesome. They don't have a first round like the NHL does. No. And this part, if you can go like this and then this, That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of, again, you talk about the casual viewers, it's the defending champs and Bob and Kachuk. And then on the Edmonton side, it's, Connor McDavid, the face of the league. Like, there's so many reasons to tune into this. But it ultimately, it'll be decided by those guys, but there's an undercurrent of players here too. These are two really, really good teams. The Oilers didn't just get here on the back of 97. Nope. The Panthers didn't just get here on the back of Bob or Barkov. And that's a great segue, Frank, into our Under the Radar segment for today. I know, hey, what a broadcaster. I'm in the zone today. But let's each identify on either side of this one Under the Radar player who could stand out, who could have a lot to say in how this series plays out. We'll start with Florida.
Okay, I was actually going to start with Edmonton. I'm going, all right, I'm going to, because there's just a tad little bit of news here. I think we've all been expecting it, but my under the radar guy is Connor Brown.
All right.
He's expected to be in the game one lineup. He's been dealing with an illness of late as well. And he's someone that when you look at his goal total so far from these playoffs, he's only one back of McDavid, and he's tied with like Nugent Hopkins and a bunch of other top-end Edmonton Oilers that make way more money, that have gotten way more attention. Evander Kane he's tied with as well. He's been a really quiet, this is the perfect under-the-radar type guy that has contributed. I mean, it feels like he has more goals on this playoff run than he did the entirety of last regular season, which might actually be true. But nonetheless, that's the type of guy that you look for. Hey, how can we find a way to continue that production? How can we get just a little bit more out of this lineup? That would be one guy that I would look at. Who's your guy for the Oilers? For the Oilers, and Pat, I'll do this in a weird way. If you can show the Florida Panthers forward lines here, because what I'm trying to illustrate is, listen, Barkov is going to get the assignment of Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl. Then there's the Bennett line, and then there's that very heavily talked about third line in Florida with Lundell, Marchand, and Luosterainen. Okay, one of those guys are getting McDavid or Draisaitl. Barkov's getting the other one. But then there's this other line, which is going to get the matchup of, in all likelihood, Adam Henrique, Connor Brown, and whoever happens to be on the other wing. And that's why Adam Henrique, I think, is so important for me. 35 years old. He's kind of had some spits, and he's had some good runs in these playoffs. He's had some moments where you kind of raise an eyebrow, and we've talked about, is he the odd man out at some point? But he's at 4 goals. That's great. His defensive conscience, though, is what's really been shining through in Edmonton. He maybe didn't have to do that in Anaheim when he was playing left wing, playing top power play unit. But if Adam Henrique can be a good, call it great, defensive third-line center for the Oilers and just saw off whatever matchup he gets into, I think that's so important for the Oilers. If they're not getting caved when Connor and Leon aren't on the ice, I think they will win this series, and Adam Henrique will be a big reason why they don't get caved if it plays out that way. Yeah, I think you're right. I think he could certainly be a pivotal player. If he has a great series, then they're going to be in a really good position to win, and if not, they could be in tough. Yeah, absolutely. Both Henrique and Brown big on the penalty kill. We'll get to John Goyens in a little bit and talk more in depth on that, Frank. For the Florida Panthers, I'll go first. I went with Niko Mikkola. Looking at some of his numbers, I mean, he was like Bobby Orr to start these playoffs. It was unbelievable. And they lost OEL. They lost Montour. Yes, they brought in Seth Jones. But you can still kind of look at this blue line and be like, oh, is it as strong as last year? He's a big reason why I think it's as strong as last year. When he's been on the ice at 5-on-5 in these playoffs, 265 minutes, the Panthers have won 15-8 in that stretch. And his most common forward opponent on each of the teams they've played, Kucherov, then Marner, then Aho. He goes toe-to-toe with the best lines, the top lines on the other teams, and Florida's outscored them 15-8. They're going to need Mikkola to be big. Again, Barkov and, the top pairing with Ekblad, they can take one of the McDavid-Draisaitl half. If Mikkola can give you really steady minutes against the other dynamic duo partner in Edmonton, then they're going to be in a good spot. They will be, and it was really interesting to hear Bill Zito talk yesterday about their team and the way that it's structured with their defense, because you look at Mikkola, and I think back to his previous stops in New York or St. Louis or wherever he's been, and there's been an amazing thing about this team where they have defensemen that come in and get better. Niko Mikkola has gotten way better, and that's been a trend for them, over this last run, where Gustav Forsling comes in, waiver guy, becomes an all-world type player and contributor. And he gave a lot of the credit to that. They call him Sly, but Sylvain Lefebvre, he's been such a huge part of their team, and really getting those defensemen to be in a spot where he can make an impact like that, and Mikkola can be an under-the-radar player. But for me, I'm going with Anton Lundell, and it was a toss-up for me between Lundell and Luosterainen, because those two L's have produced a ton of W's for the Florida Panthers in this run. And that line, Lundell, Luosterainen, and Brad Marchand, they have crushed opponents at 5-on-5. They've outscored them 10-2 so far these playoffs. We talked about Henrique and the defensive responsibilities. For this team, they play defense. They can get on the offense and create. And it all starts with, their big brain center that can really help make a lot of things happen. So he plays pretty sizable minutes for a guy in a third line role and impacts so many different areas of the ice, but also produces. Like, you look, he's got 5 goals. And we just talked about Brown and where he ranks in their team scoring. Lundell's pretty far up the list in terms of goals for the Panthers.
Again, it's a Florida team that can almost just roll those top 3 lines without even thinking twice. It's part of the reason why you can look at their 4th line on paper and be like, ooh, that maybe leaves you wanting a little bit more. But when you have the top 3 lines that are that good and can all handle 15 to 18 minutes a night, you don't really need a 4th line that's doing much more than giving you a few energy shifts every period. So, yeah, that 3rd line for Florida is going to be, it's a massive advantage for them in this matchup, and we'll see if how it plays out in Game 1 with Edmonton obviously having last change.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Seravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.